Alright guys, welcome to Formula 1 news. Another remarkable development in this year's crazy F1 season after Lewis Hamilton made comments during the Montreal Grand Prix weekend that implied potential sabotage internally at Mercedes. Everything's gone haywire over the last couple of weeks. Mercedes responded saying that is not true. Hamilton then shut down some of those rumours yesterday, but overnight an email that is alleged to have come from inside Mercedes suggests indeed there is some sabotage going on internally at Mercedes. This email comes out to exactly the same list of names that received the WhatsApp messages from Christian Horner a couple of months ago. Does this imply legitimacy of the message? What exactly is going on behind the scenes right now? What is going to happen with Mercedes this weekend? Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, our old friend is back again. Flavio Briatore, after some rumours about this over the last few weeks, has been confirmed as the executive advisor to Alpine's Formula 1 project. Has been appointed by Luca Di Maio, the Renault Group CEO. Now, this is so incredibly remarkable to me how this looks from the Renault perspective, and we'll explain why in a second. But Briatore is back on the top level areas of the team, including scouting top talent, providing insights on the driver market, challenging the existing project by assessing the current structure, and advising on some strategic matters. Look, they may well need his help. Is he going to cook him a masterclass? I don't know. Briatore is certainly known for finding creative ways to come up with certain solutions. But I wanted to mention what the Formula 1 article said on this. So here he is, of course, Mr. Briatore. Now, you guys may well remember, if you've been around a little while, that he was banned from the sport, suspended over Crashgate, right? He was at Renault in 2008, which is now Alpine, in the Singapore Grand Prix 2008, when Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed and they gifted Fernando Alonso the victory as a result of the safety car. You guys know the story on that at this point. And as a result of that scandal coming to light, he was suspended from the sport. I think they eventually accepted his suspension for 3 years. Basically, he was banned from the sport and ousted from the paddock as a cheater. I mean, let's just say it how it is. He cheated straight up and was banned from Formula 1 as a result. But here we are, the same team that he cheated for over a decade ago. He's back working with the same team. And what I find remarkable is that Formula 1 don't seem to want to mention this. Whatever you think of Briatore, I feel like it should at least be mentioned. Briatore added more titles with Alonso in the mid-noughties before vacating his position in 2009 and taking some time out of F1, which is, is this not a bit of lying by omission, right? I mean, vacating his position. I mean, he was literally caught cheating and banned from the sport. So whatever, Briatore's back. He's entertaining, so I don't necessarily mind. And I think I do agree, though, with Scott Mitchell-Miles' perspective here that, from the optics perspective, it's not great, is it, really? I mean, absurd to rehire someone banned for the race-fixing scandal when he was at Renault. It doesn't really look great, but Renault are pretty good at making decisions that make them look bad, and they're probably going to keep on doing that. Lots to say, though, this weekend. Of course, practice is going on today. Logan Sargent has, for the first time in a long time, the same car as Albon. His car was the same in some areas, but basically overweight. I think that he had the older version of the floor that was too heavy and stuff like this. So this weekend, Sargent and Albon have the same car. We'll see what that does, of course. Sargent is going to lose his seat anyway. That is a guarantee. The question, I suppose, is can he, turn it around somewhat before the end of the season? Few spotted upgrades here actually as well. There's a few changes noted certainly to the RB on the way the side pods are designed. We're actually seeing this quite a lot actually. This is the old at the top, the new at the bottom. It's not massively different. There are just small tweaks happening with the cars at the moment to change and honestly at times try and increase the undercut again from the side pods. We've seen a move in this direction several times over the last couple of years, but yeah, the RB, everything is new apart from the front wing and the beam wing say RB this weekend. For example, the Ferrari looks like this. This was the Canada version with, if you just look at the blue line here, and if you compare the blue line there to where it now is at the top, you can see that the new side pod shape is quite substantially different and with a stronger undercut than it previously was. Also, this area has been increased at the top here. You've got this little winglet, I suppose you want to call it, that they've increased the size of, basically. So a lot of new upgrades on the Ferrari this weekend. Whether they're going to work is another question. Mercedes technically don't have an upgrade. but I think they actually have brought a new floor. It's just because the floor is, I think, identical but lighter, potentially, is why it doesn't count as an upgrade. So technically, it doesn't have to be submitted because of, whatever's happened there. So technically, they have no upgrades, but I'm pretty sure they have brought some new components, Mercedes, and we'll see if they actually do anything. Red Bull, though, have a couple of parts. Red Bull's big upgrade is expected in a month or so's time. We'll see that in a couple of minutes. Ferrari, however, they need to bounce back this weekend. They didn't have a particularly good FP1, as we'll dive into here over the coming minutes. So there are some questions how quickly they can get these upgrades dialed in, whereas Lando Norris looked really strong in the first part of practice, and of course that McLaren also no upgrades this weekend. But Ferrari were planning a big upgrade for Silverstone. They've actually brought 80% of that forward, so they've managed to get 80% of their big upgrade package for the UK brought back 2 weeks earlier. So that's obviously a big bit of progress, right? They're going to have to figure out how to dial that in, but they've got time to do so, of course, over this race and then over the next couple of weekends before they arrive to Silverstone, where I suppose the rest of the package is potentially going to arrive. But also it means they've got to capitalize on that now, right? Now they've brought the upgrades. Now it's time to try and get back into the fight, because the drivers might be over, but the constructors is most certainly still on. And over the last 5 races, it's McLaren that have been on the podium every single time. One bit of bad news as well for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. He's already on his 4th MGUH, which is the final one allowed. Like, we're not really that far into the season, and the heat component of the motor generator unit, he's already run through all of them. So, yeah, unless they're just using the 4th one, they're going to go back to the 2nd and the 3rd. I don't know. That seems kind of unlikely to me. Sainz is already on his 3rd power unit. Smells like a penalty for engine components will arrive for Ferrari at some point, as it will for Red Bull as well, right? At some point that will happen. So, maybe it's not a massive deal, but nonetheless, it's not ideal to be at this part of the season and already be on your final component of the, the battery recovery, shall we say. Red Bull, their big package is expected next month. They do have some upgrades this weekend. I know Max Verstappen was talking about it and said, like, he doesn't expect the same advantage that they had at the start of the season, but he is expecting to be fastest here. We'll see if that comes true Saturday and Sunday. This was interesting, though, that Eric Van Haren said Red Bull with Max Verstappen did a secret test at Imola 2 days ago in Imola, obviously with the RB18. Now, you're allowed to drive the RB18 now, or the W13, or the SF, or what was it called, the F175, because it's 2 years on, and therefore you're allowed to drive it. And usually what Mercedes have done, said, all right, Antonelli, get in that old Mercedes to get some times in. But actually, Red Bull seem to be using it to help their own development, or even to maybe try and figure out where they've gone slightly wrong. I don't know how you want to read into this, but it's pretty interesting, I will say, that having raced in Imola with the RB20, they're now taking Max Verstappen himself back to Imola to say, look, Max, do some laps with the RB18 from 2 years ago, just so we can see where the differences are, the positives and the negatives, and maybe even look at some elements of the RB18 that they might say, what, actually, we had that better then than we have it today. So implies to me that Red Bull are still trying to find improvements, obviously, and I'm sure they will continue to do so, but also maybe indicates that there are still some weaknesses with the RB20 they are trying to resolve, or they might not necessarily have done this. Speaking of the driver market, though, Alpine are in a tricky spot. Even Pierre Gasly has made it quite clear. Ocon's gone, but Gasly has basically not said, oh yeah, I'm going to stay, I'm going to re-sign. He said, well, I'm keeping an eye on the market, we're considering the options. So it's not like Gasly is sold on staying either. He probably will stay, but it's not exactly a guarantee as it stands. Sainz to Williams, though, is expected to be announced. We talked about this yesterday, at least it was my speculation based on the comments he made in the media pen, that he said, oh no, I haven't decided or anything like that. I'm biding my time. I can sign the contract when I want, but I want to get the deal done quickly. When I heard that, I was like, he must have chosen to, maybe he hasn't signed the deal, but he must have, at least in his minds, come up with an answer. The rumour, though, is now that, yeah, this is a done deal. He's signed with Williams. It's going to get announced. That's what Motorsport Week say. Other people disagree and say, no, he hasn't signed it. But even Will Buxton said that it's potentially going to be announced today, maybe tomorrow. So, yeah, what we speculated a while ago, we talked about it, right? Williams, Audi, what makes more sense? I said at the time I thought Williams makes more sense. And I stand by that today, right? Because if you join Sauber, they're currently the worst team on the grids. In 2026, sure, they're going to have their own engine supplier. Congratulations. Is there any guarantee they're going to be competitive? Not really, right? So of the options, I think Williams has the momentum, has the trajectory, and that is apparently where Carlos Sainz is going to go. But let's talk about this crazy development at Mercedes over the last few days. This has been wild. I knew that it was going to get interesting between Russell and Hamilton, and it most certainly has. So let me just paint the picture a little bit if you guys are new to this whole saga. Back in the Monaco Grand Prix, Hamilton didn't have the new front wing, Russell did, and Hamilton was asked, what do you expect about qualifying going forward? And he says, I don't expect to out-qualify George all year, and he said, we'll see about that. Then he kind of gave more clarity the next weekend in Montreal by saying straight up that when he gets to qualifying, his tyres are 2 to 3 degrees below the temperature they should be at, which implies either a consistent mistake from Mercedes or deliberately putting his tyre blankets 2 to 3 degrees lower than George's so that he's at a disadvantage in qualifying. And look, we can speculate all day on why Mercedes would do this. Today I really want to focus on, is it actually true or not? Because Hamilton kind of said that it was, and certainly riled up the suspicion in the fan base as to exactly what was happening here. So lots of, comments, of course, directed at Mercedes, directed at Russell. What's going on? Is this true? Like, a Mercedes actually trying to give Hamilton a disadvantage going into qualifying? And we saw a couple of days ago now, James Allison said that, look, it's not true, it's not fair to suggest that Hamilton has some sort of systematic disadvantage. Now, obviously, Mercedes are going to say that. But look, there was speculation. Hamilton made his comments about the tyre temperatures being lower coming out of the pits in crucial qualifying laps, which of course would explain why he can't seem to put the lap together in Q3, but every other time in the weekend he seems right there on the pace in general so far this season. Mercedes then say, no, that's not true. And then yesterday, Hamilton commented on it as well and said, basically just tried to calm down the response of the fans and says, look, it's easy to get emotional. We're a strong team. I've commented on this in the last race of my performance. We need support, not negativity. I wasn't actually aware that George was experiencing negativity because, maybe as a result of this, people are throwing George a lot of stuff on social media, right? And he says, look, George does nothing but his best. He can't be faulted at all. There are always things that can be better in the team. That comes through conversation, through communication. It's something we're working on. So he kind of says, look, guys, calm down. Let's stop sending all these stuff that you are to George. Let's stop sending all this stuff to George and whatever. So, kind of the response you might expect Hamilton to say. He's not going to come out in the media pen and double down on the fact that Mercedes are sabotaging him, and he's never said that explicitly. But let's be real, it's been implied on the statements made in Montreal. So then, overnight, we then got this confirmation coming out of mainstream media sources about Lewis Hamilton being sabotaged by Mercedes, claims anonymous email sent to F1 personnel. An anonymous letter said to be written by a disgruntled Mercedes staff member suggested Hamilton is being mistreated in his farewell campaign. Now, we'll look at it in a bit more detail here in a second, but what I wanted to look at actually is this. So, okay, we saw this already. Who was leaving them to join Ferrari is being mistreated in his farewell campaign. The list of email recipients was the same used to link messages pertaining to be exchanged between Christian Horner and his complainant on the eve of the seasoning opening race in Bahrain. So this is the mega thing, right? Because, like, if there's an email that's gone around that says, oh, hey, Hamilton's being mistreated by Mercedes, and that's just arriving in the inboxes of various people, I mean, who knows if that's true or not, obviously. But if the list of people that it was sent to is exactly the same, which is literally all the people in the F1 paddock, all the top journalists and stuff like this, and for some reason Jos Verstappen was copied on that email apparently as well, when the Horner WhatsApp messages were leaked, and those WhatsApp messages were never proven to be true, but they were certainly never proven not to be true. And I think the general feeling is that, yeah, those WhatsApp messages were real at the time, but of course they it never went anywhere in terms of repercussions for Horner. That drama was crazy a couple of months ago, but here we go again. So whether it's the same person, which it can't really be, can it, sending the WhatsApp messages and this potential thing, or what maybe is more likely is the fact that someone who received this email or was aware that the Horner email happens, therefore had access to this list of individuals and therefore was able to send this new message to the same list of individuals. Whether you think it's true or not, that's another question entirely. But whoever has sent this email immediately has some degree of validity in the sense that who it's been sent to, right? It's not like the fact that we've got Daily Mail, Independent reporting on this is it's not necessarily true, but it's certainly interesting, isn't it? So this is what has been said, and we talk about it a little bit further. The thing that gets really interesting is actually this bit. In a twist, so this is coming out of Jonathan McAvoy from the Daily Mail, possibly along with others, received a separate WhatsApp message directly to my phone expressing similar sentiments to those contained in the email. It too was anonymous, and the sender did not respond when I asking for him or her for more information. However, a source close to the scene told me on condition of anonymity that he believes the email's contents were broadly accurate, and there is a feeling, emphatically denied by the team, by the way, the team are saying no, this is not true, this person, whoever it is not working for Mercedes, that Hamilton is being held back. We know the stats. The email said, some of us in the team are unhappy about this systematic sabotaging of Lewis, his car, his tyre strategy, his race strategy, and his mental health. Lewis is excluded, and some underhanded things are going on that people need to be aware of. Ask the questions and the truth will come out. It's all in the data and it's recorded. With the exception of Bono, his race engineer, and those of us who love Lewis, others are on a dangerous course that could ultimately be life-threatening to Lewis, other drivers, even the public. A cold tyre strategy is a death warrant, he says, which of course is what Hamilton implies. So that's what the email said. And that's pretty damning, right? I mean, look, whether you think this is true or not, the person is saying that they work at Mercedes and there's a serious swathe of the team that is trying to sabotage Lewis Hamilton. And I'm not going to lie, you look at the evidence over the last few races, there's certain things that have happened that just make you wonder, is this team incompetent or is there something actually going on? Let's say since Monaco, for example, when it came out of the pits and they didn't tell him to push hard on the outlap, they said outlap normal, and if Mercedes and Hamilton had pushed, then he'd have, completed the undercut and got the position over Verstappen, which surely was the goal. So there was that whole thing. There was the decision to put him on the hard tyres at the end of the Canadian Grand Prix, where clearly mediums seemed like the better option, and Russell was clearly faster on the mediums than Hamilton was on the hards by the tune of probably half a second or so. And there was the whole cold tyre stuff during it's like there's a few things that have happened over the last few rounds that it can either be explained by deliberate action in this way or just pure incompetence. But it would be, quite incompetent, right, for a team that's won 8 world championships in a row from 2014 to 2021. So, what do you guys think about this? I'll leave it open from there. I don't really want to speculate further on why Mercedes would do any of these things. And Lewis Hamilton, while he may potentially feel this way, and seemingly does, is probably not going to say more on the matter while he remains at Mercedes. I will be fascinated to see, after this season comes to a close, Hamilton leaves, goes to Ferrari, whether he has anything more to say on what's happened behind the scenes this season. And, apparently some individuals at Mercedes are very much split. There may be two factions in terms of, the faction that wants to support Hamilton and the faction that for some reason wants to undermine him. So it really is quite interesting. There was also this from Alan Baldwin that apparently the email was not quite the same. The list of people that it was sent to was not exactly the same, but then there's apparently the email was there, but on the list of recipients, there was no sign of it being there for some individuals. So a little bit confusing as to exactly what is going on here. But the drama at Mercedes, the plot absolutely thickens as to what has been happening there over the last couple of months. I'm recording this just after FP1, so I'm not going to talk about the second practice session today. This is how things were with, 12 or so minutes ago, and basically nothing changed and then to the end of the session. So the times at the end of FP1 were as follows. Norris was P1, Verstappen right behind him in P2, then it was Sainz and Russell on the medium tyre, so, pretty impressive lap times there, although Leclerc was actually really not having a good time. He was constantly complaining about the balance of the car and the car just being slow. So there's, I think, a few things for Ferrari to figure out in terms of getting their upgrades to really work, but the Mercedes wasn't bad either. Ocon was actually here in P8, Alonso, Albon in P10. The long run data, though, is what I'm really interested to see. I guess we'll see what happens after FP2, but the discussion was during FP1 that in terms of long run pace, Norris's pace was actually the strongest in the field by a little bit of a margin. So it's looking interesting at the front, and it seems like, again, for another weekend in a row, it may indeed be McLaren who are Red Bull's closest challenger. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.